Um, so after a break, we have, before we start the program, we have a commercial break. Yeah, right. Commercial break, right? So some of you have asked, some of you have heard about me taking people on pilgrimage to different parts of Asia. I was doing a little bit more. In fact, before the year before the pandemic, I took maybe 3 of those groups to Bhutan and to Nepal and to Southeast Asia. So there are 2 actually coming up. One probably too soon for anyone to say, I want to go. That one is actually happening from September 4th to 20th, 16 days to Nepal. So if you go, you would probably leave here September 1st or 2nd, because you lose a day and everything. So that's a pilgrimage. There are focus on practice, focus on the practice of pilgrimage, going to sacred sites, how to relate to sacred sites. Monkey see, monkey do, a bit of what Tibetans do at sacred sites. So all around Kathmandu Valley, we're not going too far away. The furthest we're going to go, which I've never been all these times that I've been to Nepal, is this cave called Maratika. It's Guru Rinpoche's cave, Pemasambhava, where it's said that he achieved the siddhi, the accomplishment of longevity. So he lived a very long life because he accomplished that. So people like to go to the cave and do the same practice and say, and me live a long life, you know. I jokingly said that, you know, the day I signed my mortgage, I think I got my long life sentence. It's like the banks are very powerful, you know. They have extended my life by 30 years. And so I received the long life empowerment from the bank. I did it like in my 40s, you know. I'm like, what crazy person would give someone in the 40s 30 years? So we'll go to Maratika. We'll take about 4 or 5 days. It takes a whole full day, you know, to go by road out there and spend a couple of days or 3 days, I don't remember, then come back. Then mostly in Kathmandu Valley, going to different day trips, but mostly in Kathmandu Valley, because we have access to a very nice, new kind of private temple. But it's not built as a temple. It's basically the top floor of an apartment building that otherwise would be like 4 apartments and it'd be turned into one big shrine room. And nicely outfitted for people who like comfort. But that building it's okay, footnote, steps, no elevators, so not very friendly that way. But otherwise friendly enough. So that's September. Due to illness, two rooms have opened up. Unfortunately, two sets of people who were planning to go now can't go because of illness. The cost of what we call the land cost of the tour is 3,000. Then you have to buy your airfare, blah, blah, blah. And then when you're in Boulder, you shop, right? A Buddhist shopper's paradise. While doing pilgrimage things, which is circumambulate the stupa, and then you circumambulate, right? And then you're like, ooh, look at that. Now shopping becomes a holy activity. But historically it was like that, because like Tibetans actually cannot get a lot of ritual objects in Tibet. A lot of the ritual objects were Okay, first of all, historically, it was very hard for Tibetans to get ritual objects. And, you know, they didn't have that much money to start with. But even when they could get, it's often done in Nepal. Statues, ritual objects. So people, when they go on pilgrimage, also to shop. The second one is December 25th to January 2nd. We go to the land of the Incas, Cusco and Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu. That's 10 days. It's not really my program, but I'm facilitating it. It's with the head of the order, His Holiness Dugong Kyabgen. Rare opportunity. This group will be small, maybe 20, 25 people. If you go to Ladakh to see His Holiness, you know, he's one dot over there. You have an ocean of people waiting for hours to walk past him to get a blessing. But it's a 10-day program with him. 3 days of full, like this kind of program. The other days were basically going with him as he goes to all the Inca sacred sites and visiting and going to Machu Picchu. And we have built a stupa in between Cusco City, which is one of the ancient capitals of the Incas. The other one is in Quito, further north. Those are the two capitals. So Cusco City, in between Cusco and Sacred Valley, which is the gateway to Machu Picchu, right along the highway, we built a stupa. So we will do things also at the stupa. So that's December 25th. You should arrive no later on December 25th, and you leave January 2nd. The land cost for that is 2,000. So that's Peru. So those are the two tour things that's coming up that I'm directly involved in or facilitating.
And what's the process for registration for Peru?
To send an email to this address, which we have not responded to the emails yet, everything is still being worked out. But if you have sent an email, rest assured, we got you. We just need to. So all of this, like the 2,000 or 3,000, is based on a room sharing basis. Now, if you say, there are two of us going, good, now you have your roommate. If you don't have, then we randomly put someone with you. We still follow all the gender sensibilities so that it's not, who's this dude?
Briefly, you could say what the connection is between Incan sacred sites and this,
We have a stupa there.
besides that. Oh, there's that. No, but,
Besides that, yeah, there are obviously, you know, if you go to YouTube, there are several explanations. You can find them because there are some very uncanny resemblances. Some people would trace it back to how Native Americans from north to south came over, you know, the landmass, Russia and Alaska landmass, long time ago. Definitely pre-Buddhist. What we're talking about prehistoric times. So that landmass, they came down, you know, and populated, right? The brave / lazy ones stayed mostly in the north. Then the ones that go, no, it's madness to stay here, went further south. I was talking with you guys about kind of getting that point when I was in Mexico City and going to the Museum of Anthropology, and you saw, you know, like all the artifacts of empires. But Northern America, all the tribes never quite built empires, simply because the climate and the lack of surplus didn't make it possible. But you go to a place like Mexico and further south, I mean, not south like Chile, that also is pretty impossible. So in Chile also, you don't have like empires. Empires is all in places where, like in Mexico, Guatemala, you stick a branch on the ground, tomorrow it's a tree. It's just quite sad that the politics has been such a mess, right? And of course, the USA went down to meddle with that. There's a history of that. Not to blame everything on the USA, the Spaniards were ruthless down there when they were in charge. So there's a whole history of why Latin America, so many people are leaving to come north of the border. But otherwise, everything is so fertile there. It's just look at the fruits, like unimaginable number of types of fruits and grains and vegetables. Like, why do you even need to fight, Life is so much more easy. Stick anything in the ground, it grows, Anyway, so Inca, because we have a stupa there. Why do we have a stupa there? His Holiness built a stupa there. Why did His Holiness build a stupa there? He saw those connections many, many years ago when he first escaped from Tibet. At that point, his family, being aristocrats, have already relocated to the US. The CIA gave green cards to specific important people, of the Tibetan government that came out. So his family fell under that group. So they all had green cards already. But he didn't leave with his family because the monastery won't release him. When his grandfather went to the monastery and said, "This is for real, this time we have to leave," monastery said, "No, he can't leave." So then he lived through the Cultural Revolution and all, the challenges. There's a really nice book of his life story called From the Heart of Tibet. It's not the typical religious biography of a Tibetan holy man, which usually means it's just a collection of, and then he received this empowerment, then he gave that empowerment, then he went into retreat doing this practice, then he came out and discovered this practice, then he went to, right? Just page after page after page. His biography is very different. He lived through the tumultuous times of the fall of Tibet. And really, his biography also showed the complexity of this whole issue of Tibet. So he stayed, and then, anyway, he came to the US, and in the context of studying English, he took English classes and he had a tutor. And he said when his tutor invited him to dinner at her home, when he got there, got in the house and sat in the living room, tutor went back to the kitchen and family was around. He looked around the living room. And then the tutor came out and His Holiness said, "Where did you get all these Tibetan things?" And tutor was like, "No, not Tibetan." His Holiness said, "Yes, they are." And she was like, "No, I got them from Peru. I taught English in Peru for years." His Holiness said, "What? Where's this Peru?" And so these are weavings, not like Buddhist things, but all the patterns and all the techniques of weaving, all of that. And so then that kind of brought into His Holiness awareness of Peru. Then years later, after he went back to India and resumed his role as a spiritual leader, he was invited to Chile. Then when he was in Chile, there was a Buddha, we had a center there. And when he was there, he said to the people, "I want to go to Peru." And he says, "Here's money. Can you buy me a ticket? I want to go see Peru." So he went. And then eventually, long story short, he built a stupa there. There are lots of resonances, pre-Buddhist things. Now, also to kind of ground ourselves and not go to La La Land, if you know anything about weaving, you know that there are limits to how the designs can be. So in that way, it's quite universal. right? The patterns, just the way, right? The limits of the loom and everything. So there's that for sure. But then how do you explain, like, the sling, right? How do you explain when it's shaped exactly the same, exactly the two ends, exactly the motif of what they call the eyes, 9 eyes, then the color scheme, exactly the same in the Inca land, in Tibet. But so we know that that migration came down. So there are resonances there. Yeah. So the more shamanic things, you look into it and you see the correspondences. Mountain deities. Yeah, there's a peculiar way of not just that the mountain has deities, but the mountain is the deity. Yeah? Rather than deities took residence in the mountains, but the mountain itself being the deity. That has resonances to pre-Buddhist. It's not accurate to even call Bonpo. It's just pre-Buddhist indigenous Tibetan relationship with land. You see these similarities. Certain Northern American native tribes' words are like the reverse of Tibetan words for sun and moon. So there are that the language similarities, like certain Mayan languages, like in Mexico and Guatemala. There is a professor at University of Virginia that works on Mayan languages. He saw the similarities with grammatical patterns of Tibetan and Mayan, of one particular Mayan language, and he thinks this one is way more recent. It's not the landmass migration. He thinks that maybe 1300s there was some kind of exchange connection, and so it's a peculiar. My friend who understands those, saying like there's a way they talk, for example, about, like we say, rain is falling, but there's a particular weird grammatical construct where both Tibetan and this Mayan language would say, like, the rain, like, is caused to fall. And apparently, linguistically, no other linguistic groups in the world use that kind of formation. Yeah. So how did they meet? Where did they meet? Pre-Columbus, we know that Chinese monks have accidentally ended up in California while trying to get to India. Yeah, there are records like that. So the ancient world wasn't so airtight, People have always traveled. People have always accidentally stumbled into somewhere else thinking it's somewhere else. Like us, at the airport, going to the wrong gate. Second announcement. If you want to kind of stay connected, as you already know, there's a Sunday group that meets here every Sunday and also on Zoom. And whenever I can, I join. It's 11 a.m. here. It's good to meet as a community in 3D. I can't be in 3D, so I come through Zoom when I can. So that's one context to kind of continue this within the context of I'm involved. Another way to continue this, I have a group of people from different parts in the US and in Latin America. We meet every Wednesday night, New York time. I don't say Eastern Standard, Eastern Daylight Savings. New York time it meets at from 7 to 9. So you can also, some people here are involved, you can get information from there. There, I say, if you're involved, if you want to join that, please be consistent about your participation, because it's distracting when people come and go and come and go. And it's confusing for yourself, because it's distracting, because I don't like to just leave people, out there. So then when I look on the screen and I see a new name, then I feel that I have to say more about this or that. And then all the other people have heard it 27 times now. They're like, come on. So it's a little distracting if you just come and go and come and go and come and go. And also it's not very beneficial to you. Why, right? So I of course, understandably, you're checking it out, you don't know yet, but after a period of checking out, just decide, and commit to something. So that's the Wednesday night. Then now, if you're new to Tibetan Buddhism, and then you feel like, oh, I'm starting to connect to some of this, and you want to look for a program or a community or a something that can give you the kind of support that I think you would need, especially if you're just starting, I would not recommend my Wednesday night group, because we simply don't have the infrastructure to really support you. Then you look to what, again, a number of people here are doing, which I, way back, were herding people into doing. No, I don't get a cut from that program. It's called the Triple Excellence. You can get information from Mick or Cheryl, and Betsy, I know, is also doing, and a number of our Joyce is doing. So that, Chukinima Rinpoche have the conditions for people with a lot of experience, people meaning Western senior practitioners. In many cases, I would say they could be teachers in their own right, but they have, good for the rest of us, instead of going off doing their thing, they have joined forces with Rinpoche and created a structure, a system that can provide the kind of support that little people like me absolutely cannot. So if you want to deepen, and you're very new, that's a good program to consider and to commit to.
And we meet Sunday mornings at 10 a.m.
Okay, right.
They want to come talk.
So that also has a local chapter, so to say, that's meeting too. So yeah, so that's the PSA, commercial break, whatever.
Now it's just triple is specifically for Tibetan Buddhism.
Yes, Triple Excellence is Tibetan Buddhism. Yes, and it's focused on the deity Tara. If you look at this practice, we look at page 11, just to point out some of this here. On page 11, at the top, even though the completely pure expanse of realities is uncompounded, that again, pure expanse of reality is uncompounded, it's talking about emptiness, the indestructible nature, the pristine nature, the interdependently arising phenomena, or that which makes it possible for interdependence to play out. So even though, so this is what we call the ultimate reality. Even though ultimate reality is uncompounded, yet you appear, you emanate as the medicine deity. So here again, you have the two truths. Here again, you have the relative and the ultimate. And the relative and the ultimate are not two things. That's why in another context, we use expressions like non-dual. But non-dual doesn't mean, just bleh, fuzziness. Non-dual means you see relative truth in all its details. So karmic causality playing out in all ways, in ways that we label to be desirable, in ways that we label to be undesirable, in ways that we label to be neutral. All of that, right, is relative truth, is karmic causality playing out. And medicine Buddha, to the degree that there is such a form, right, to a degree that there is such a practice, is purely, right, because of the diversity that of you and me. Yeah. So then in that sense, it's, you could say, an expression, an act of compassion that you emanate as the magical reflection known as the medicine deity. You are the essence of all the Sugatas. Sugata, those who have gone well gone once. Su is wellness, goodness. And so they have gone to the good place. Not euphemism for they're dead, but they have been liberated, right? You are the essence of the Sugatas of the past, present, and future 3 times. I pay homage to you, I prostrate to you with the lapis light. So there is the 2 truths, wisdom and compassion, merit and wisdom, relative bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. All is contained in that one verse there. And then the next is praising the physical, the form qualities of medicine Buddha, right? The translation is very, it's not unusual. A lot of Tibetan Buddhist texts are translated in a very faithful way. So awkward. So it can be awkward, I feel, like supreme hair. Like who talks about supreme hair, Supreme hair. And then like a beehive, right, Then I can't get over Marge Simpson. Every time I think beehive, I read that, Now I planted that in your head. You're gonna have medicine Buddha with Marge Simpson hair. So the mudra of offering generosity and meditation, even that, that's the 2 truths. That's the relative and the ultimate. The ultimate is the unmoving, abiding in meditation. Nothing happens. In the ultimate sense, nothing happens. Then the giving. No coming, no going, no birth, no death. Doesn't mean you don't relate to beings that are experiencing the pains of birth and death, the suffering of coming and going, the suffering of gaining and losing. And so this hand stretched out is responding to the sufferings of the world. The sufferings of the world, look at it from another perspective. Really, it does not truly exist. But to say that it does not truly exist is not to say so you ignore, right? And you ignore oppression, you ignore injustice, you ignore suffering. Of course, easier to ignore if it doesn't affect you. But that's not the case, Here, when we say non-dual of emptiness and form, non-dual of ultimate and relative, it doesn't mean, take these 2, add them together and divide by 2. Non-dual doesn't mean that. Middle way doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean, take this, take take the emptiness, take the form, add together and divide by 2. No, non-dual or the middle is to transcend. To transcend, what does that mean? Again, it doesn't mean like leave behind. Here in this context, transcend is not leaving behind. Transcend means not to fall into one or the other extreme. So then you say, well, what does this mean? To me, I'm not saying this is the ultimate meaning of it, but at the level that I think we can work with, is good to work with, is holding this paradox, right? And this is a powerful paradox. Right? Not to want to say, resolve it as this way or that way, which is our habitual, right? Either there's a God or there's no God. Either there's hope or there's no hope. Either it's good or bad, right? But to not, settle for a simplistic platitudes about, everything will work out. So it's hard for Buddhists to do counseling. Really, when people are suffering, and you're tempted to go, we're all gonna die. That's like, what a jerk, right? But at the same time, if I'm gonna say everything will work out, it's also not true, right? But in the end, it's not a Buddhist problem, but it's the fact of being human, right? So if we hold these as a paradox that we are not trying to resolve, but to understand, that this is the mystery of life, where the ultimate and the relative is said to be non-dual, and to be suspended in that space. This, I call it as a fruitful suspension, a fruitful not knowing. There's the not knowing that is just a blur. And then there's the not knowing that is the result of being able to hold this paradox together and not wanting to immediately resolve it one way or the other. So ultimately it's dealing with, right? Not ultimately, but along the way, what is being trained is our ability to sit with uncertainty, to sit with things not being resolved, to sit with loneliness, to sit with despair, and not obsessively wanting resolution. If it can be resolved, great, why not? And there are things that can be resolved easily. But there's a lot of things that cannot be resolved the way we want them resolved. But they have resolved, just not the way I want it. So between what is and what I hope it is, how big that gap is how much you have to suffer. That's all, Yes.
Would you say that sentence one more time?
Oh, gosh.
Just one more time.
What did I say?
How big the gap is
Between what is and what I want it to be is that gap that determines how much you have to suffer.
Thank
you. Yes. Now go make a bumper sticker.
So are you basically saying kind of don't obsess to what you can control or can't control?
Yes, don't obsess, and between what you can control, what you cannot control, but even more, I would say even more than that, know that, control is an illusion that sometimes is more believable than other times. Even when you're like, yeah, this is in control. Well, that's because things have lined up in such a way that it's more believable now that I say this is in control, that I'm in control. Again, there is the abandoned control that is blurry. This is not the Buddha's teachings. But there is also the abandoned control that is due to clarity. There is the renunciation due to disappointment. And then there is the renunciation due to seeing clearly. It's different. Like, I'm not going to, fall in love anymore because I've been burned too many times. That's one kind of giving up. That's not the Dharma. The Dharma is you become free of like, I need to fall in love, That's a different kind of giving up. Completely, the quality is different. There is the sadness of disappointment, and then there is true renunciation. True renunciation is like, I want to be free. No, thank you. Yeah. There is the alone because, things have not worked out. And there is the alone, which is, this is good. I know I can be good for myself and for others more this way. It's very different.
So it's not choice.
Yes, choice in a way.
But the amount of aversion, it's the degree of aversion.
Yeah, the degree of aversion, right? And the degree of attachment on the other hand. So to be free from attachment and aversion, we say to give up hope and fear. Again, the giving up can be due to skillful giving up and frustrated giving up.
So can you, that's one of those things. You could maybe unpack that a little bit about aversion, because the giving up mindfully, wisdom,
Based on understanding.
non-attachment,
Yeah.
as opposed to giving up.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
there's that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's okay. Not much to be said. Now experience.
Yeah.
And then compose some poetry.
Write a song.
Yeah. Based on that, so we experiment and we practice, which is what practice is. We experiment. We try it, and see. It's not always going to work out the way you think it's going to, but you that's process, that's path, Sometimes we think the path is like the more you practice, right, the more everything just lines up. No. Somebody said to me, or asked me a question the other day, like, I thought I understood this practice in 16 stages. But then when I started doing more and more, I now have doubts about, I have questions about, and I said, good, that's what we call progress. And then he immediately understood that. I said, if you do it and it simply confirms everything you thought it is, then there's no growth, then it's just confirming your state of confusion, which you want to get out of. So of course, it's going to stir and bring on new questions now. When I was teaching college, I like to say as an ideal, I don't know if I ever achieved that, but as an ideal, and I think this applies to us, I said, it's not so much about finding the answers that you're looking for when you learn. It's really about, good, right? You're finding the answers that you're looking for. But I said, that's just a preliminary step. Because the next step we have to take is now learn to ask different questions. Right? Because the way we frame our questions is based on our limited understanding of what is. Yeah? Like, why do I have to suffer? Right? And then maybe you find the answer to why you have to suffer. But maybe that's not really the question. Maybe that's not really the question. When you know how to ask the question differently, to me, that's like, now we are really progressing now, you know? You're beginning to ask different questions now. I mean, not so different. Page 12, like the praising the speech, all the dharmas of the provisional meaning are gently revealed. What it means there is that, so all the teachings and all the realities of provisional meaning, meaning that provisional meaning is a technical term. It's referring to how some of the things that we say the Buddha taught, they have provisional meaning. They're not the ultimate meaning, right? And that they are provisional and not ultimate is not because the Buddha goes, I will speak in riddles. I'll just tell you straight up what's going on, right? It's not because of that. It's because, again, of our lack of capacity to see what is going on, right? So even when we say secret is self-secret, you know? Like especially Vajrayana is called the secret tradition or the esoteric tradition, right? The esoteric teachings. But it's secret or esoteric not because somebody is deliberately keeping the truth from you, but your own inability to plumb into the depths of that, right? So they're secret, they're esoteric. That means they're not apparent. Yeah, they're not apparent. So here, all through the speech of Medicine Buddha, all the dharmas of the provisional meaning are gently revealed. So what it's saying there is that which is a provisional understanding will begin to evolve into a definitive understanding, revealed in that sense. You will begin to see that this is really how things are. How things are is that they are empty, but they interdependently arise. Now, right now you say, I don't see that, you know. Then right now you relate to that as a tool, right? A way of, a strategy, a tool for existing in the world based on that intellectual proposition that things are ultimately empty of essence, yet vividly appear in all its diversity. Yeah? Right now, we cannot see the truth of it, but for whatever reason, it seems to make sense, right? So now you relate to that statement as a tool, as a strategy. But this tool, this strategy, can eventually evolve into now, oh, indeed it is like this. So this is how provisional truths turn into definitive. It's not that the Buddha has changed his mind. It's just, have we evolved to the point of seeing? Such as saying, all experiences are characterized by suffering. So right now, you're like, okay, I can see how that is. So, okay, no need to believe that that's how it is, but use that as a tool, right? Use that as a strategy of how you live your life. And then if you begin to apply it, then you can begin to notice more and more. Yes, indeed. this quality of lack of satisfaction somehow is built into all experiences that we have. But when we say all the experiences that we have, we're saying all the experiences that come through us from the sense doors. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. And the sixth one, intellect. As long as they're coming to us through those doors, they always have a layer, a stench, or maybe, even fully stinky. Varying degrees of stinkiness. Why? Is it because that they are by nature stinky out there? No. But these sense doors, these sense perceptions are unreliable. So necessarily, it's unsatisfactory. And when you are willing to entertain that as possibly true, that's when you begin to relate to the Dharma as Dharma. Then you keep investigating, so to say, experimenting with that. Then you begin to see, all sense experiences carry with them varying degrees of being unsatisfactory. Now, you give up is not out of frustration. You give up out of being smart. So what are you giving up on? You're giving up on something out there completing you. The worst crime of Hollywood, or the all-time crime of Hollywood, Jerry Maguire. Yes, not the violence, not the gun, everything. Jerry Maguire. You complete me. Okay, finish then if you think that it's not just people, whatever that you think there's a you that's going to complete you out there, finish. I prostrate to you who are the supreme refuge, who dispels the sicknesses of wandering beings. So all sicknesses, all pain, all disease arises from us not seeing things as they are, but taking appearances, temporary appearances, to be how things are. Someone, can appear very nice, very desirable, very sweet, very, in this day and time. It's all personas. Not saying that people are out to dupe you, but it's just how sense perception. And then the internet has brought even more possibilities of sense perceptions to come through. In the past, people's sense perceptions were limited to about 20 people. Most of human history, human beings interacted all their lives with more or less the same 20 people. That was the time of the Buddha, and even that time he was warning us already. Your sense perceptions are not to be trusted. Imagine he's here today, And then this little thing brings like the whole bazillion universe in there. And then I, on the basis of this, believe, don't believe, like, don't like, yes, no. Good, bad, politics, entertainment, whatever, everything. And then get into arguments with other people on the other end of this. That's why I'm going to the forest. Gonna hang out with the deer, the bobcat. I don't like snakes. I have to confront that fear. I don't like snakes. Ugh. Never liked snakes growing up in Malaysia. We have cobras. You remember when we were at Grand Canyon? My God. A rattler.
Right beside Dr. Lodge, of course. You're rattling.
It was at the outside of the bathroom, at this viewing the Grand Canyon, whatever, and we're like, let's go before we continue on driving. Go in. I came out and I sat down on this rock, but I was like, alert enough to go, wait, what is that sound? I quickly got up and right next to it's warning me, hey, you're too close. And it was a baby, so dangerous, The grown-ups know to control the venom. Babies, yeah, babies are more dangerous because if they shoot out all their venoms, they die or they get very weak. So adults know how to control. Babies are the ones you have to watch out for. They would just give it all to you. I don't like snakes. We have copperheads in North Carolina. That's about at least in that part. I think maybe there are rattlesnakes, but copperhead is the main. But it's okay. Yeah, so around is a haughty, prideful, proud assembly of Shanglun rishis, planets. So these are all the other entities. So we talked about how you dwell with hands together, venerating the Bhagavan, right? So this is not about being naive. Yeah, we know there are. So in the context of medicine and healing, right? So yeah, pharmaceuticals just want to make money, but don't demonize them because that doesn't solve anything. Yeah, bring them into the picture. Yeah? Make them disciples of Medicine Buddha. So we are a little bit, making a difference in that way, just a little bit shifting. Bring them into the conversation, so to say. Bring them to become disciples of Medicine Buddha, including the disease-causing spirits, we say. Don't you're the enemy, we want to destroy you. Once the stronger you have this adversarial relationship with, then the harder.
I know so many people in Little Rock, friends of mine, that aren't Buddhists, and they will, oh my God, they will not pray for Trump or anybody else. And I think, what do you think? How big is your God?
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to bring them in, and understand that people act in ways that are harmful because they feel that they have been harmed and they are threatened. So how do we? Yes, Alice.
You've already discussed this, excuse my listening, but how do you define harm? Because that's a kind of a mixed word or a mixed message. I'm just curious about in the context of around is a haughty discomfort. So of all of this.
What do you like about it? What do you don't like about it? Say more. What do you like about it or don't like about it?
It's just that it's a mix. I just feel for me it's not clear exactly.
Say more. Say more.
It's a question, I guess, of whether I'm thinking of it as haughty being almost projecting an inaccessibility or a better than responsive on the human level.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's how.
Oh, yeah.
But here,
Correct. They are like that.
okay.
These entities here that are on the periphery of the medicine Buddha mandala, prideful, standoffish.
Yeah.
What do you want? Who are you?
What the hell are you doing?
Oh yes. These are the hoodlums. These are the hoodlums. You bring them in.
And the praising is just saying, yeah, this is where you should be, right?
Yes. It's raising them to like, okay. The Malaysian school system is very much like the English school system. So growing up, we have the system of like student prefects. So they're like, peer police, right? Student prefects. The teachers have learned, hall monitors. The teachers have learned to, of course, choose the ones that they know are, good example, la la la. But I also know that the teachers have also learned after you do all of that, you also choose the biggest troublemakers and make them also hall monitors. Yeah, you bring them in, now they have no choice. Now they have to behave. These haughty ones. And also it's speaking to how, in the role of and they are functioning, yeah, they are troublemakers, so on and so, but they also protectors. So as protectors, they're not going to be like at the door, oh, come on in, right? That's the welcoming committee, right? That's Cheryl and Joyce, right? But other than Cheryl and Joyce, we also need some, Dharma bouncers. Because some people need to understand, you don't come here and mess around. We need all types. So some of these protectors are, their basic stance is like, prove yourself, we'll let you in. Right? But then there are others who are like, no, just give them a chance, But they're all in that picture, which is, I think, something for us to learn in our real communities, right? So the haughty ones, in some ways, we're talking about, there's like haughty bad, but there's also signaling. So thanks for the question. Boundaries. Just because we say for all mother sentient beings, it doesn't mean you let any and everything come in. Because sometimes you have to say, you can watch from that side. Like, for example, the public image of the Dalai Lama, right? Of course, recently also marred by, again, what people simply see, Like, never mind, like the whole life of, luckily, the whole life of basically impeccable. Then how people manipulate images get suddenly everyone. I even know people who for years, oh, Dalai Well, of course, it's circumstances in their life I also know that triggered immediate response. Oh, this is bad. This is, Okay, side point. But the main point, like the Dalai Lama, we all think, oh, so sweet, always laughing, everything. That's just one side. One of my professors, Jeffrey Hawkins, he says, I have seen in Dharamsala, not hidden, it's not a secret, it's not what the press sees, right? But Tibetan people know full and well. There have been times in the assembly, all the monks are gathered, and he's about to give an empowerment. And so some people I know were there, and he said, before I start this empowerment, I've said again and again and again, those of you who insist on continuing a certain practice that I already told you not to do, I don't want you here for this empowerment because it will harm you, it will harm me. And he says, so please leave now before I start. Nobody moves, He waits. And he said, look, I'm not speaking in the abstract. You know who you are. Please leave. Nobody moves. The seat he sits on, like really thrown high up. He gets up, he walks over, both hands, much younger Dalai Lama, pulling, drag them, threw them out. And he said, I said, you have to leave. Is it not being compassionate? No, it is, because, these are the lines that cannot be crossed. It will harm you, it will harm me. Because I am saying this practice that you insist on doing is harmful, and you do not accept that, then why even come to this thing that I'm doing, Don't. No point, And not only no point, on a deeper level, he says, it will harm you, it will harm me. So please leave. And they don't listen, He gets up, drags them out, throw them out. So, and then, okay, now we can start.
Nobody sits up straight.
Like, whoosh. Yeah, so haughty assembly of Shanglon rishis, planets. Yeah. We return to the egg. Now, you can add to the basic in the sense of like pithy, and can be very effective. Basic not in the sense of like, you will graduate to something more profound, better. So where we add to this is, or you could say, maybe not so much adding, but let's, on the same lines, you can start off with the egg, right, going up. Then from there, this breathing, push up, down, maybe 3 times. We like 3, Then, right? Yeah. Then this, this, or this either way is fine. Then. So after the 9 rounds, then you're back to meditation. Then at that point, now instead of a crystal egg, right, it's a white skeleton.
So
skeleton. White skeleton. So now you are in the form of a skeleton. Like an X-ray, you know. But white skeleton, radiant, bright, but no flesh, no skin, no organs, nothing. Just a white skeleton. This white skeleton meditation goes way back, even before Vajrayana. Buddha Shakyamuni taught his monks to meditate on all the parts basically rotting away. But in this technique, you don't start with the full body and rotting. Instead, that crystal egg, right? Now, you could say that crystal egg like comes together, rearranges so that you're a crystal skeleton. Yeah, so a crystal, a white skeleton, whether it's translucent or white like milk white or water clear, it's up to you. So you now have a skeleton. So part of the symbolism and also the feeling of the skeleton is that no disease, no harm can latch on to any of this. Everything just slides away because of being this white skeleton. Then in the center of your crown is a white Om. In the center of your throat is a red Ah. In the center of your heart is a blue Hong. If you are not able to see the Tibetan script, then just OM, white in color, AHR, red in color, Hung, HUNG, blue in color, or simply 3 pearls, white in color, red in color, blue in color. From the Om, from the white Om in the forehead, little Oms spill out of that Om. Spills out of that Om, overflowing with Oms that then basically flow out into your body. The text actually says, and this is not very pleasant for me, because it says the Oms are falling out like a nest of snakes, crawling, creeping all down. But they're white Oms. And as you visualize that, if you want to chant, you can chant Om, 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 Om. And as Om, 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 the whole body is covered with white Oms, skeleton body. Yes.
In the skeleton form, not a
skeleton. Yeah. Still skeleton. Then Om, Om, Om. Then eventually this Om becomes like an orb. Now back to the egg. But now you have a white protective shield formed from the Oms. But the Oms have dissolved into just like a force field, but egg-shaped. So that's the first layer. Then next layer, so from the throat. So if you cannot visualize in the Tibetan script or even in English alphabet, then little pearls, of red now comes out like a nest of snakes. The idea of the nest of snakes is moving rapidly, right? Coming out of the nest, moving rapidly. Then again, this time, outside the white dome egg, So now it's almost like those Russian dolls. The babushka is a red egg. As you chant, and then hong, 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 the blue. Then it forms the third egg. Now, blue egg, red egg, white egg, but translucent, transparent. And inside is yourself as a skeleton. Then ahum, 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 ahum. Hold the three, blue, red, white, skeleton. Ahum, 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 ahum. Then if you want to stop chanting and just breath, inhale hold exhale hum. Do silent meditating. And if silent meditating, you're getting distracted or drowsy, you can start verbal meditation. Ahum, ahum, ahum. Whenever you're chanting mantra, as important as it is to verbalize, is to also hear. And so it's almost like you're saying the mantra so that you can hear it verbally with your ears. And so you want to pay attention to the sound of the three syllables mantra. Ahum, 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 ahum. Then finally, when you want to move on to the next step of this, then just naturally, easily, without a lot of contrivance. No need to hold this vision, this image, this visualization. Just release holding it. Then whatever is. So basically, dissolve, you could say, or let go of this visualization, let go of the skeleton, let go of the different colored eggs, layers, and then just an expanse. Feel like, your person becomes a great expanse of light. And just remain there until like active other types of thoughts or feelings come. Then at that point, you stop the meditation. So this has been recommended as particularly helpful if for whatever reason you feel like unsafe. Of course, don't wait until you feel unsafe. Right? You need to kind of keep this close, so that when you are actively feeling unsafe, you can easily have this skeleton with the three white, red, and blue orbs, eggs. Yeah, this is the protective practice of the three syllables.
When you say unsafe, does that just mean any kind of anxiety or fear that seems to be arising with an object?
Mm-hmm. And with, yeah, either way. Then if there's, and actually an object of fear out there, you also need to do other things, okay? if you can like familiarize yourself with the first step of this whole exercise, you will note, that it's starting to be a little different, which is the skeleton, the white skeleton. That, this is who I am. In the text for this practice, it says, you arise as the skeleton Idam. For those of you who knows Idam, Idam is the meditation deity. It's the Buddha principle that you identify with. In this practice, it says a skeleton Idam. What? There's a Buddha form that is skeleton? Then, we might have seen some paintings of tankas where there are what's called chittipati, the cemetery guardians, as like dancing, two of them, male and female. So I remember when I first learned about this practice, the teacher who gave this, I said, like, are we to visualize that? No, he said, more general. It's not referring to any specific form of any Buddha, but it's kind of teaching us that a Buddha form can also be a skeleton. It's like, okay, suddenly everything has been inverted. Because this is also, addressing, in a subtle way, our fears of death and loss. And decay. Calling the skeleton now, not just a skeleton, but a yidam, meaning like a tantric Buddha, a Vajrayana Buddha form. Huh. I mean, tantric deities, yes, they might wear bone ornaments, like a skirt made of bones, human bones, they say, kind of more like, ooh, right? But it's based on the same principle. Now, you arise as this divine form of a skeleton. So that will be a less literal translation, but the meaning, I think, comes across. Now you appear as a divine skeleton. Just a little bit more complete, right? Even though it's complicated, we should not completely ignore on 16. So at my heart center is a moon circle disc mandala. And in the center of that is a syllable Hung surrounded by the mantra, the whole mantra that we chant. Yes? Now, at the heart center of the Buddha, the Bhagavan, the Lord generated in front. So what, if you want to go into all the details, what is it that you should see there, imagine there, visualize there? A six-sided red heart, ruby in color. So a hexagon, red in color. From these six sides, light and light rays stream out. From the tips of these rays, the six sages emanate. We're talking here about the six Buddhas that appear in the six realms of existence. They appear at the end of those tips. These emanate to clear away all the anguish and unawareness, may be better translated as wrong awareness, meaning of wandering beings of the six realms. And basically talking about ignorance. Now then, after that, on 17, in the center of that heart is the Gati crystal tube channel, standing like a clear crystal pillar. Inside the hollow of that channel, on a lotus and moon seat, is a blue five-pointed vajra. So this is how a vajra looks like, standing upright. In the upper five prongs dwell the five families, father and mother Buddhas in union. In the lower 5 prongs dwell the 5 families of father and mother wrathful Buddhas called Herukas in union. Then in the middle, in the stomach of the Vajra, standing in the center of a sun disk, of a sun seat, is the blue Hong syllable. And around that, the root mantra is circling. Do you really want to know? Clockwise. Yeah. And then next, at the heart centers of each of the 4 goddesses in the center of a mundus seats are the clockwise circling syllables Hari Nisa. So that's the detailed visualization.
So what does harmonies?
They are the 4 syllables of the 4 goddesses. Yeah, there's no explicit meaning. They are sounds. Hari Nisa. Yeah, they turn up in many mantras. Hari Nisa. Like Vajrayogini, Bam Hari Nisa Hum. Hari Nisa. So as I say, as beginning this practice, still working on having a sense of how the practice works, right? It's enough that in your heart on the moon is a blue hong, in his heart on a sun is a blue hong. Then that's that visualization. Then if you're blessing medicine, the light rays that come out of medicine Buddha and 4 goddesses, instead of coming into you, it goes into the medicine that you're blessing. It goes into the herbs that you're blessing. It goes into the minerals that you're blessing. They dissolve into there. Just from the blue hong here, the light still goes out from here and strikes, they say, the heart syllables of medicine Buddha and the 4 goddesses, then light stream forth from them. If you're not doing any specific, charging, empowering, consecrating of medicine, then they dissolve into your heart. But if you are, then they go into the medicine. Yes.
Find the singing version of that you were looking for.
Yeah,
You're gonna get it.
I sent to you already.
Yeah.
WhatsApp.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And that long prayer at the end, after you go through the list of names, it's very nice, you also get some understanding of how Tibetan medicine works. But 27, bless me so that I may become wise in the traditions of healing and uphold the lineage of the rishis, the sages of the healing tradition. When the sick hear or see these healers, please bless them so that, like arriving in the medicinal forest, they're spontaneously, they're naturally, they're effortlessly freed from the sicknesses of wind, bowel, phlegm, and combinations of heat and cold. When the healers examine the sick through the compassionate magical manifestations of the rishis, again the sages and their retinues, please bless them so that they see the characteristics of the sickness, so being able to diagnose what's going on. Like gaining clairvoyant powers by polishing a magic mirror. Magic mirror is a common divination tool for Tibetan divination. They will look into a mirror and get answers. So this is making an analogy. Please grant your blessings so that when the healers give their prognosis, the sick experience happiness, like peacocks do when the turquoise thunder dragon roars. Feeling that they will be healed and experiencing a mind of joy, may they smile and feel cheerful. So this is, this is our version of praying for people. Then next, when the medicine is being made, please grant your blessings so that all locations of sickness are instantly conquered, like how vipers flee when they smell the Magita herb. And there's a plant that they say that poisonous snakes don't like. I need to go find this plant. Grow it all around my tiny home at the monastery. And never leave it. Yes, and all along the path. I don't know if it's true or not, but in Malaysia, they say that snakes don't like sulfur. Yeah, so we put sulfur, like back when people still live in villages, more likely to see snakes. Now we're all living in high rises. No more snakes turning up. Yeah, different kinds of snakes. But yeah, at night, when I grew up in this house, landed property, a couple of close encounters. They just slid in, and then you're sitting in the TV room watching movie, and then suddenly in the dark, like something moved from the corner of your eye, and I was like, "Cobra, cobra!" Only once or twice. It's not a daily occurrence, okay, but enough to go ah. My dad, it wasn't even my dad. He was like. He had newspaper with him and he was like swatting mosquitoes. He thought mosquitoes was his enemy, He's watching TV and swatting. And he said, like that. Slowly back away. Go to the other room, turn on the lights and make a lot of sound and run. And hope the cobra go in a different direction. Generally, they're not causing trouble, they're as freaked out. So if you, give them a path to escape and they remember where, they'll go that way, But if you go in the direction that they're going to escape, then you're colliding. Uniting heat with coolness and having coolness ride the horse of heat. That's so just the right combination of heat and coolness. And the medicine is always a balance of elements. And then having coolness ride the horse of heat when the remedy touches the tongues of the sick. Grant your blessing so that the qualities and might of the 6 tastes and 8 powers. The 6 tastes are sweet, sour, bitter, spicy, and then I forgot the 2 more, like plain and astringent. I think these are the 6. 8 powers I don't know offhand. Increase so that the armies of sickness are conquered. When the medicine passes through their throats after being absorbed with digestive heat. So this issue of digestive heat, as I was saying, in Tibetan medicine is greatly emphasized. In part because the situation of life in Tibet, nutrition is hard to get, and you can't order nutritional pills to pop. So hard to get nutrition. So the issue is not about increasing nutrition intake, but the ability of your body to absorb nutrition. So that has to do, they say, with digestive heat. Through the effects of sweetness, sourness, and bitterness, grant your blessing so that the increase of wind, bile, and phlegm is exhausted. And that the disturbances and so forth of the battles of sickness are reversed. So this is our way, of praying for the sick, praying for the doctors. At the end there, there's a praise to Medicine Buddha again on page 33, So you can actually, like, if you want to, like, there are many ways to shorten the practice. So you can go all the way up to the mantra recitation. Then from mantra recitation, as we did yesterday, come to page 33 and skip the long prayer if you don't have time. Come to page 33, that kind of summarizes the praise in 4 lines. Medicine Guru, granter of compassion, 4 medicine protecting goddesses, Shanlon and the rest of the haughty assembly, I praise you and your retinues. Then ring, ring, ring. Then dedication. 34 is dismissing, like dissolving. So it says the wisdom being that is in front, that has been dissolved into the commitment beings, the wisdom beings go back to the natural expanse. There it's a very interesting, natural expanse. So the commentary will say, here it says, depart to the Buddha realms. And here, symbolically, right, it says, please come back again, meaning please come back again when we do this practice again. So this is appealing to our sense of coming and going, now and later. So it's attending to our relative needs. Yeah. So here's the thing. I think sometimes we think, oh, well, it should be ultimate only, But no, the practice is always holding this paradox. So in the commentaries, right, when you give teachings, more detailed teachings here, then here's the question the Lama would raise. Where are the Buddha realms? If you think the Buddha realms are over there, over there, over there, over there, you have missed the point. Right here is the Buddha realm. So please depart, even though you have departed to the Buddha realms, please come back again. And down there it says, the primordial beings depart to their natural abode. Same. Where are the natural abodes of the wisdom deities? Where are the natural abodes of the Buddhas? Right here. Right here. So there's no coming or going. And yet, the appearance of coming and going, we cannot ignore. So when they come, we welcome them with offerings. When they go, we say, don't forget to come again. But then, there's no coming or going. That's the paradox. I try to remember this, when I force myself to make my bed when I wake up in the morning. I say, what's the point? I'm gonna mess it up again. That's the point, Make a bed so that you can mess it up. Mess it up so then you can make it again. Bajramu is, there's the mudra, and then there's the snap. It's like poof. Special effects, right? So up to now, like, please come back again, Bajramu. Then this next part, actually, again, no need to say out loud, actually. It's the end staging, right? It's describing, okay, with Vajramu, the wisdom beings depart to the natural abode. The Samaya beings, the commitment beings, which is what you visualize. Now you imagine sucking them in and absorbing into yourself. Remember, yourself is in the monk form of Medicine Buddha. Now that dissolves. Then just, often it says dissolve, but really it means now release that. No need to actively, I'm Medicine Buddha, Medicine Buddha in front. Or just let it naturally settle and remain there and meditating for a while, enjoying the silence, the quiet, the feeling of being at ease. And then to seal it at the end with, again, another dedication, whatever usual dedication prayers that you do. More or less, that's it. More or less, that's it. There are more resources, for this practice. This is an extract of a longer sadhana. And if you go to the Trigong Dhammakirti, which is the group for Wednesday night, on YouTube, there are many recordings of different topics and titles. So maybe when you send out, you can send them the YouTube channel, Trigong Dhammakirti. And including in there, and we've been pretty good at creating playlists. That's a way to organize. So there should be one playlist for actually the sadhana, but it's the longer one, where I gave a lot of details, including details about some of the names, like who are they, briefly. Because a lot of the names, most of us don't know anymore who they are. Some of the names are rather obscure. Because this lineage is so obscure. Yeah, like it's not one of them. It has no institution associated with it. That's the thing. If there was a continuous institution, then their memories would have been kept alive and stronger. Now, they just, so I was able to find a few biographies of these names. I mean, some of the names are usual suspects of the Tibetan Buddhist world, like Trisong Detsen the king is mentioned here. So Trisong Detsen was a connecting point, the Tibetan king, for this lineage. I mean, how much he actually practiced medicine, I don't know, but he was one of the connecting points, the Dharma king, Trisong Detsen, that invited Pamasambhava to go to Tibet. So there are more detailed information in these recordings. I mean, if you want to plumb more into it, you can get them there. Then if you want access to longer practices of this tradition, and then other like auxiliary practices related to this, if you're into that sort of thing, go to this website called buddhavisions.com. And buddhavisions.com. It's one of our translators, meaning translators translating Drigung Kagyu practice texts. Eric is a friend, Eric Fry Miller. He was at the Drigung Monlam. He was the translator. Yeah. So Eric has recently released a compilation of texts over 100 pages on this cluster of practices. And you can purchase online and download as a PDF. More resources. Then if you want to go really into this system, honestly, frankly, then look up Dr. Nida. He like Chogi Nimar Rinpoche, he has a good group of people around him that's helped him to transform this into a system that people can enter from at different times at their own pace, all of that. Yeah, pointing you to these directions that I think that you'll learn for sure. Dr. Nida is very educated. Yeah. Yes.
Is there a source for the white skeleton?
Mm-hmm. What? Sorry?
Is there a source for the white skeleton?
Yeah, there's a specific text in the Drigung Kagyu. There's a specific text that I'm, from memory, but we have the text, and it's from the Drigung lineage. Yeah. There are lots of these short practices like that, very pithy, that the founder of the lineage taught. And they tend not to be liturgical. And then 5-6 centuries later, someone comes along and turn them, into, verses, 7 syllables, 7 syllables, 7 syllables. Then you can all chant la 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 la. But they're based on teachings that he gave in the 12th century, where really in the 12th century, at least in the Kagyu family, there were very little liturgies to perform. Sadhanas were all there were sadhanas, but they were all more like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. At a certain point in the development of Tibetan Buddhism, when Buddhism clearly had no other competitions in Tibet and has become like the national project for anyone and everyone in Tibet, that is when, so starting around the 17th century, maybe even a little earlier, that is when what was previously pithy, even secretive, personal contemplation, meditation, right, got turned into publicly performed liturgies, like the Catholic Mass, that assumes an audience. But if you look at the Indian tantric sadhanas, they were all without an audience, and they were all to be done by one person, a single person. Like today, all these liturgies, they have notes, that says, you need 4 attendants, 2 to carry this thing out, 4 to play that instrument. It has become a ritual performance, which is what all the drupchins and all those are about. I'm not saying they're wrong, but it's just how they have developed necessarily, They develop in a certain way. But in the early days, there weren't that many of these liturgies and pujas, because they were contemplative practices to be done by the individual. I love ritual, but then at this point, I'm like, I'm going to the forest. Going back to the early simplicity, but at the same time also, I think the important transformative work that has to happen inside. So this sadhana, as it's done today, it will be chanted out loud as a group. But again, back when, no, it's a solitary, singular practice of individuals doing. So let's close with dedication on page 3. Oh, we have already passed 16 minutes. By this virtue may I achieve the omniscient state. May all who wander on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. Thank you. Photo time, photo time, photo time.
No, also, first of all, we want to thank you on the face to the camera instead of on the behind. Thank you for coming. We hope you will come down from your forest.
Oh, you can go visit the forest.
We can come to you, but we hope you'll also come back to us.
Yeah.
From time to time. We promise to show you a good time.
Not so soon in any case, the forest, right?
Forest.
Between 2 to 5 years kind of time, yeah. I mean,
Well, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
So much.
Yeah.
Give everybody.
Photo time, photo time.
Thank you.